All right, welcome to day 13. Today we are going to paint some ornaments. These are really fun because you can really paint them any way that you want. You can put different designs on them. I think at the end I'm even going to show you I have these glitter watercolors that I love and try to find more ways to use them. These are from the brand Lisa Linka, which I believe she is in Germany. But they're very good. But there are other glitter brands that you can use as well. So if you just have some and want to add some sparkle to your ornaments at the end, that's always fun. It is not necessary. You do not need to add glitter. If you're one of those people who likes to avoid glitter, that's fair too. The main thing we need is, I'm just going to start with basic just round ornaments. I mean, you could always paint any shape or size. There's all sorts of different ornaments out there, you know. Oops, sorry, bumping my camera stand, I apologize. But just to keep it simple, we're just going to paint a couple of circles. If you want to use something round for your circle shape, depending on the size, I'm trying to see the size of this might work, maybe even my bleed proof white container. I wanted to add about 3 ornaments at different heights. This might be a little close, so I think I might go ahead and try this, which is smaller. I'm just going to trace around the bottle just to get a round circle shape to be my ornament. It's not going to be exact. They're kind of looking a little funny because I keep changing the position that my pencil is in, but it gives us a nice start. There. Okay. Then I'm going to add just a little rectangular type thing here that's going to be the attachment, whatever. I don't actually know what that's called, but you know, the little wire or metal looking bit that attaches on top of the ornament to hold it on. And I'm just sketching this very well. Ideally it's going to be very lightly, but right now it's not all that light. I'm going to use my kneaded eraser here in a minute to kind of lighten it up. And then we can add a line. That one doesn't have as far to go because it's way up top. And so this is just a rough sketch. Take your kneaded eraser, lighten up the lines so that you can see them, but that they're not so bright that they're going to be, or so dark that they're going to be visible under your paint when you add that in. Okay, and then we just need to pick our colors. I think it'd be kind of fun to do at least a red and a green. I might do a gold. It's going to be kind of a yellowish brown. I'll probably use my raw umber for the base color, and then I'll add in some of the glitter at the end, just for the fun of it. Add some sparkle. I like to paint with sparkle whenever I can, which isn't very often. I don't find situations where I can use it where it makes sense. I don't want to just paint in glitter just for the fun of it. I mean, I guess you can, but I could glitter everything if I really wanted to. But I try not to do that. I'm going to swap out. I have some dirty water. I'm going to swap out to some clean water there. Some of these I have, one water has some red in it, one has some green. I might use those when I'm adding in my green and red color, but for now, let's start by filling in our color. Actually, you know what? I painted a bit earlier, but just in case, I'm going to spray my paints just a bit to get them activated so that they're easier to pick up. And then I am going to do, why don't we go ahead and this will be a good time to practice different ways to add our color to the ornaments. And so we'll do one where we wet the ornament first and then drop in the color, and then we'll do another one where we pick up the color and add it in slowly. And I don't know what we'll do with the third. We'll go from there. So let's start with this one. I'm going to go around where the outline is. I'm going to wet my paper. I don't really want it to be dripping or pooling, I should say, but fill in that area. Try not to go out of the line too terribly much, because wherever I paint, wherever I put the water, that's where the paint's going to go. And I'm going to go ahead and do the red first. And I'm just going to drop it in here all along. I do want, because we're doing an ornament, we want to have it darker along the edges. Maybe have a nice little white spot there. So I'm not going to fill it in everywhere because I want to have some highlights. We'll add some shadows too, especially if these are hanging on a tree. There would be a lot of shadows. But I'm going to fill in most of the ornament there with the color. And I'm going to pull some of this. I accidentally got up into my little metal bit that's going to hold it. While this is still wet, real quick, I do want to add a tiny bit more color, maybe even get some of that green for a shadow color. And I'm going to add it just along this edge here and a little bit down here, just to create some like shadowy areas. And I want it to blend out while it's all still wet. So we don't create any harsh lines. Okay. And then we'll come back to that after it's dried a bit and touch it up a little. Oh, goodness. See, and then because I got it wet, now I got a lot coming into here because I just added more color. So I'm just going to try to quickly pick that up a bit. And then I'm going to use my towel and kind of dab it. Luckily, we'll go over that with color, but that is supposed to be kind of a silver, so it's going to be a lighter color. And so we don't want to go, we don't want to leave too much other color in there. I almost took a sip out of my paint water. Something to be careful with. Okay. This next one I'm going to go and do the green. I think it'll be fun to have the red and the green right next to each other because they're complementary, and I'll put the golden one up there. So for this one, I'm going to pick up the color and add it without wetting the paper first. And I'm going to use the Perylene green, have a nice bright green, not bright, but like a pine green. Since I'm not doing the background of the pine tree, it's okay. It'll stand out. It'll be fine. And I'm just going to go along the edges and kind of paint all along here. And for this one, I think we're going to put down all the color and then we're going to try to lift some where we want the highlight to go. And this is just giving us a chance to try some different techniques for our ornaments. Gives us more practice with some of the different washes techniques. And you can kind of see like what you prefer and what you don't. I use different things for different things. Okay, so we're going to wet the brush, tap it off. We want to make sure it's clean. Tap it off, get it as dry as you can. And then we're going to go kind of in the same general area and press and lift some of that color out, kind of wiggling a bit. Doesn't need to be perfect, just lifting some of that color. Okay, and then the other thing I'm going to do is grab some more of the Perylene green, maybe even add a hint of some sepia in there just to darken it up a little bit. We could have used the red as well. And I'm just going to put a little bit of darker color over here. Maybe even here because of that there. This would even be a good spot to add just a hint of the red in there because that red is sitting right next to it. And so the shadow color being red would make a lot of sense. So we're doing a lot of like wet and wet, dropping in color, even though we started this one with wet on dry, but we're dropping in color now into wet paint. So it's still wet on wet technique. But this we got our highlight with lifting, and this one we kind of left that area plain and then dropped in some color around there. And so we'll just see how they kind of compare when they dry. And then we can add more shadows at the end with the wet on dry when they dry completely. All right, this last one, I'm going to use this raw umber, Mission Gold raw umber. It gives it a nice golden feel. And I think I actually really like the wet technique first. So we're just going to wet the paper. My brush is a little dirty, so some of that water is going to be a bit dirty. I guess I didn't get it as clean as I had hoped. Sometimes it's tricky to do, so just keep rinsing. It's okay if there's a little bit of hint of that color, as long as it's a really light color. Like we're not gonna paint this white. If we were gonna paint this white, this would be a big whoops, because it's clearly not a white thing anymore. But now we're gonna drop in the burnt or raw umber. Sorry. I'm gonna avoid that same general area that I avoided on the red one and the green one. And I'm just going to keep spreading that color around. Wet my brush, get it as clean as possible, dry it off a bit, and then I'm going to actually kind of take some of this and pull it in here. And kind of do a combination of leaving that area white, but then also lifting some of it. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of the sepia for my shadows. Using the brown works really well since it's a gold, but you could also use a purple because it's the complement of yellow. And that would make some good shadow colors as well. I think because this yellow leans more brown, the sepia works. I try not to use too much just of the darker brown-like colors or black for my shadows, but sometimes it works out. Okay. So now we're going to let these sit and let them dry a bit. That one's fairly dry, but it still needs to dry a bit more before we work on any of the other finer details. So I'm going to pause my video, let it dry completely, and then I will come back and we will add just a few more wet on dry details to each of the ornaments to get a few more shadows and everything, and just touch up a few spots. Then we'll work on the topper there, the ornament topper for each of these, and maybe add in our string. And then if we want to add any designs onto these ornaments, we can do that once all of our shadows and everything are dry. And that's when I'll use my glitter paint, and you can as well. So I'll be right back. I'm going to pause it, let yours dry. Come back when you're ready to move on. Okay, I am back. It's been 5-10 minutes or so, and my ornaments are pretty dry. So we are going to go ahead and come back and add in just a little bit of shadow details on the ornament, and then we can work on the top bit. I really wish, I probably should research these things so I can actually call them what they're called, but it is what it is. Here we are. Now I don't have a picture of ornaments like standing like in this position, and so as far as making the shadows, it's going to be kind of a little bit of just random guesswork. If you're painting from like a reference photo and you have actual shadows to look at, that makes it a little bit easier. But for this purpose, I'm just gonna wing it, kind of. Just create a few shadows on it to make it look like it shines a bit. We have some of those highlights. So I'm mixing in some of that Perylene green with my cadmium red to get that brownish red muted color that's going to be great for shadows. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow over here on this side. I'm going to wet my brush and I'm just going to kind of pull that color out a bit. I don't want it to be just a straight line. I kind of want it to be a bit splashy. I'm wetting my brush a little bit more, kind of doing a sort of a gradient. I want it to blend out into that, into the center of the ornament there. Okay. And then I'm going to do one up here. I am looking at, I do have a reference photo of one ornament, and that's kind of what I'm looking at as far as the shadow. I've got some shadow under the topper here, and then along this side a bit. And then I'm going to wet my brush again, tap it off so it's just damp but not soaking. And I'm going to pull that color towards the center. Okay, in this picture, the color kind of connects down here a bit. We can keep it a little bit red. Sorry, got a little too bright there. Just mixing some of that in. Wetting, tapping. It's a lot of just going back and forth between the water and the paint and just all that. Okay, so that's that one. I'm going to leave that as is now. We'll go back over to the green one. For the green, I'm going to go ahead. I know last time I did, I think, some of the sepia. What if we try a bit of that green so that it's kind of, I mean the red, like we did with the green. Or the, oh my gosh. You know, so they're similar, but it's going to be more brownish green up here. And we'll do a similar thing. I do know there's going to be a shadow over here because of that ornament there. So I'm going to start there, maybe not go down as far. Wet my brush, tap it off, blend out this color a bit. Again, wet my brush, tap it off. And then I'm going to grab a bit more and do this opposite side as well. Dropping in some of that color. Wet my brush, tap it off, pull the color over. And this one I think I'm actually going to get a little bit more up top here. I think with that ornament sitting right there above it, and even this one on this side, that it would have more shadow near the top there. Okay, so we're going to let that sit. And then I'm going to come over to this golden one. I'm going to grab some of that color. I might even grab a little bit of the quinacridone gold just to give us some brighter color in there as well. Let's start with a little bit of that actually. Just because we already have some of the brownish yellow, and so now I'm just doing like another, basically a layer of the more yellowish gold that I'm going to throw on top there. I'm avoiding that highlighted area, but I added some there. I guess it's just a little more yellow, and then we'll just use the raw umber for the shadow color here. And I feel like there'd be more shadow down here because of the ornament below it. Wet my brush, pull some of that color out. Okay, I'm gonna get some nice clean water, and again, I might just try to blend where the edges are and lift a little bit of color there, just to make sure that highlight stays nice and bright. Okay. And so now I'm gonna let that sit. Hang on, I'm just touching this up a tiny bit because it got a little lumpy. It's the hard part with a round shape like this, is it's really hard to get it to stay the right shape. Okay, now I'm going to use a smaller brush. I might even just use the fine liner just to make sure I have more control, because I don't want to get into the wet areas of these ornaments, but I'm also being impatient. And so I'm going to do the topper here, which is usually kind of a silver, unless you have a different ornament that might be gold. You can go either way. The picture that I'm looking at right now has silver ones. I think most of them. Oh, I've seen some gold. So you could go really either way. I was just going to use a bit of a grayish color to do kind of the silver. I was going to use this color, which is from previous projects. It's my Sepia mixed with some Soda Light Genuine, and it makes a kind of gray color. But if you want, we can actually use this the same color here and make it more of a gold. Let's do that. That way it kind of all blends together. It makes some sense. For this one, I probably will use a silver just because I don't want to have too much gold. And so for this, we're just gonna kind of trace that area. It helps that we did kind of a rough edge up here before, and so we can kind of work with that. We want it to be kind of lumpy. I think I probably should have paid more attention to that when we first did it. And I'm also going to add in that loop that the string goes through. Okay, and we'll go ahead and go down here. Do the same. Be very careful. If you touch the green, it might bleed into your piece here, which might not have the effect that we want. And then we might even add in some lines of shadow on here as well when we're finished, just to give it more, make it not be so flat. Our ornaments have a good bit of shadow and don't look flat, but then this looks a little bit flat on top. We'll just need to add a little bit of, we can add a little bit of, using the sepia, add a little bit of shadow to like one side maybe. And even maybe a strip of the sepia. Sometimes they have ridges, and so creating a little bit of that shadow bit there could just give it a little bit of depth. Okay. And then on this one, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do the silver, the gray color that I mixed before, just because I think gold would just be a little too much gold. We want to break it up a little bit. Okay, and there's my little topper. Okay, perfect. We want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that they're fairly dry before we add in our strings. We want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when we do the strings, we want to make sure that those are fairly dry before we add in our strings. And when I actually probably should have done like 2 different lines because it's probably going to go, unless it's tied on here, you would have 2 lines going through, and one's going to cross in front of the gold and one's going to go behind it. And so that's like just a little adjustment that we can make when we paint it. I will say on this, it's drying a bit, but it's still probably a little wet, but I see a little bit of a hard line there, which we can leave, but we can also try to wet our brush a little bit, dab it off so it's just kind of damp, and then we can kind of try to soften the line just a bit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it just creates other lines. So it's just something we can try with practice, but also to be aware of. I've also got this little line here that I don't love, but I'm gonna let it stay because I don't want to work too much with it. We don't want to overwork it either. Okay, so we're gonna pause for just a bit again, just to make sure those little bits that we just did are dry real quick. Though I am gonna get a little slightly darker area of this just so I can add in a few little lines to make it look like it's got grooves and isn't just one solid flat piece. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and pause, come back in just a moment when everything is dry. Okay, I didn't wait very long for those. They're fairly dry. We didn't use a whole lot of water for that. And so again, you can take, I'm going to use probably this gray color that I mixed, and you can follow that straight line if you want. It does have a nice little look to it, but you could also do slightly kind of like a curved like loop. So it looks like it goes through that and is holding it. It does look nice and simple with just a straight line, which is kind of a fun aesthetic. If you want to go more realistic, it's probably going to be looped unless you've got like a hook, and then you'd want to do like painting a hook of some sort so it would at least connect there a little bit. We could go either way. I know in archery we have the hooks that are green, but I'm sure some ornaments have the strings. I'm sure there's lots of different ways that they could go. So let's just try. I think for right this second, I want to try to do just a little loop, like loop. And I'm gonna have it go behind there and then in front there. And then when we're done, I'll erase that line. Okay, see, I make sure it only goes in front in one spot. And so then it looks like it's going through that hook. And then we do the same thing here. Make sure I've got a nice dark bit that can go in front here. You want to try to do it all in one motion. The more you go back and forth over it, the more it thickens and you can miss a spot or something. So it makes it a little tricky. And then here I'm just going to start there. Perfect. And then this one is barely there. Goes off the page. But I still want to make sure it looks like it goes behind one loop and in front of the other. Okay, once that's all dry, I will erase the little bit of pencil line that you can still see. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but if you have a pencil line there, you can erase it then as well, but this gives it a nice, more realistic feel. Okay, so now the last thing, you can leave it as is. This look, to me, this looks perfect. If you want like have nice plain colored ornaments on your tree. But you could also do some designs. Some of them have like the glittery spirals. snowflakes, other designs and shapes on them. I've seen one that has like Christmas trees with glitter, which could be fun. Could be just stripes. However you want to do it. I am going to go ahead and pull, let me swap this out real quick. Bring in my glitter paints that I'm using, and I will just show you a little bit of how I would go about doing that. I do use a separate jar for the glitter just because I don't want to mix it in with my other jars that I'm still using for other things. This one's actually low on water, but that's okay. I'm going to replace it here soon. For this specific glitter, you want to place some drops of water on your colors that you're going to use. I'm going to use the red for the red ornament, the yellow for the yellowish gold for the gold one, and then green for this one if I'm going to add some. And I just want them to be subtle, so I'm using the colors that are the same color as what we're starting with. And then I'm just going to do a couple of different designs and show you a little bit, I guess, of how this works. But you can see when you mix it in, like the glitter moves really, really nicely. For this one, I'm just going to do a few little stripes. Because it's a round ornament, I'm making them go at different angles to give it the impression that it's rounded, three-dimensional, not flat. We could do a lighter color of the glitter in the areas where the highlight sits. But it doesn't matter, it just is a nice, just a fun little thing to add. Like I said, not required, but you can kind of see when you move it in the light, especially, that it shimmers. Maybe for this one, we do some glittery, I don't know, snowflakes. Snowflakes could be fun. Do one, and then we'll do two, three, and this is a little thick. And these, I'm not looking at a picture for these, I'm just kind of drawing some designs on there, and so it might be easier if you do have one, so you can see kind of if it goes at an angle or off the page at all. But this is just a fun way to take like a simple painting and just add a little something to it. You could even do like little tiny bits on here. Little almost stars, nothing too crazy. You can do polka dots. I've seen the ones where there's swirls. I've seen some where they're presents. Polka dots. Polka dots I think might be fun. Just to add a few little dots of color. You could fill in the whole ornament with the glitter if you really wanted a full sparkly ornament, and it should show, at least to some degree, some of the variations in color. If you've got brighter areas, I'm trying to make it not symmetrical, more random. Add in some smaller ones, but it should show up a little bit, but the glitter will kind of cover some of that, so I don't know how easily we would see our shadows. But there we go. 3 simple ways to just add a little something to that ornament, and then it's gonna dry and it won't be as wet, but it will still have that sparkle. This one's already probably a good bit dry. You could add some sparkle to the toppers if you really wanted to. It's entirely up to you. But there we go. I'm gonna let this dry completely, and then I will take my kneaded eraser to that very faint line, and then I'm gonna call this done. And I will see you guys tomorrow for day 14. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun, and I'd love to see what you guys did if you feel comfortable with sharing. Thanks, y'all. Bye.